in focus, out of focus, as if she would have
Using a lens.
got her shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found some of that stuff to be very intriguing to me and very interesting. And it that's the kind of stuff that kind of kept me in it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that you have that luxury. Even if the story completely sucked and was completely boring, your mind would still be looking at that stuff regardless.
Yo fam, it's time to raise that sound. Frenzie beats, we come to get down. Talking life, films and the wildest scenes. Lady Frenzie dropping knowledge, a stream, queen's dream. We mix it up, a little spice, a little nice. Topics hot, we roll the dice. From silver screens to what life means. Dropping rhymes and themes, check the live streams. It's the Frenzie Zone, where the talk is real. So grab a seat, tell us how you feel.
So maybe partly, but also I just felt the way that they shot shot all these scenes really put me in there.
Gotcha.
And that's the only reason why I wasn't completely bored. Also, I have the luxury of liking enjoying seeing what they're doing with the camera when Lee was laying down in the grass and you see the whatever those little flower things are called, and you got it coming out of focus and in focus as she's literally, because they were basically trying to showcase the human eye and her being a photographer, how she sees the world, and she was going in focus, out of focus, in focus, out of focus, as if she would have
using a lens.
Got her shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found some of that stuff to be very intriguing to me and very interesting. And that's the kind of stuff that kind of kept me in it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that you have that luxury. Even if the story completely sucked and was completely boring, your mind would still be looking at that stuff regardless.
I think we're live.
Yep, that's what I was checking.
I've got it on the iPad, so we'll see.
Okay.
Bring that down a little bit. Is that the music that's crackling?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's supposed to be
Sounds
there.
like a record player?
Yeah, I think that's
bullshit.
supposed to be the thing.
Okay. Let me try to get it back up again. Okay. I guess that works. Looks kind of weird.
What looks weird?
The screen.
Oh.
But just roll with it. What's going on, guys? What's going on? It's the Frenzie Fam podcast, episode 3. 3 weeks. 3 episodes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Seem really lull.
I froze my behind off today. I got a lot of energy zapped out of me because of that.
Well, you're weird. Wait. Oh yeah, it's just reminding me. We were gonna have a guest on, and I don't think they're gonna make it. So, I was getting a Zoom reminder, which is actually kind of good because we actually were having some trouble trying to figure out the audio portion of it, on how to get it to output and where we could hear it, where you guys could hear it, and where they could hear us and we could hear them. But it was just I couldn't figure it out. So maybe it was a good thing. Although he would have been great to bring on to talk about Civil War stuff.
Oh yeah.
And he went and watched the movie. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the movie Civil War from A24. British director. Take that for what you will. Yeah, let me check this real quick. So today was kind of weird because it was so cold.
It wasn't that cold here.
I guess over there it was just windy.
It was so windy there.
Yeah.
That it felt like 20 to 30 degrees colder than it actually was.
Right. Yeah, that's stupid wind chill factor.
It was awful.
Oh, this mic has it's definitely like sounding weird, like shh, 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 every time I talk. I mean, maybe it's too hot. I don't know. Maybe it's good. I don't know. It just doesn't sound right to me.
It sounds fine in my monitor.
Yeah, let me try something here. I don't think they can hear that. Bring the monitor down a little bit. I just hear like shh, shh, shh at the end of each thing when I talk.
I don't.
You don't?
Mm-mm.
It also could be the headphones, I guess. But we'll have to check it out afterwards. But yeah, so went and watched the movie Civil War, the film,
Mm-hmm.
A24. I'm kind of still processing it,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense. So I don't know exactly how I feel about it yet. I know my initial thoughts was like to give it like a 7 out of 10 or a 7.5 out of 10. Somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
You're more generous than I am.
Sure.
But
But-
that's because you actually take into account like you were saying, the music and the audio and the way that they shot things and like all the artsy fartsy stuff
Yeah,
that
so like sound what you're trying to say is sound design,
mm-hmm.
score,
Yep.
cinematography, composition.
Mm-hmm. See, like I said, all those things, I was getting to this point that normal people don't pay attention to.
I think normal people pay attention. They still don't know what it's called.
They don't like say, oh, because of that, I'm gonna give it an extra 3 points. They don't. It's a whole package. They don't dissect it. They like it just all adds to if they like it or not. The whole feel, overall feel. Those things help it or not. They don't like
Right.
categorize. Oh, that part, the score was great. The
Mhm.
whatever. They don't do that. Normal people don't.
Sure, but I found it to be kind of enjoyable. But you were bored out of your mind.
I was bored. And because I like my rating is a 4. Yeah, 1 to 10. It was a 4.
Oh wow.
I didn't enjoy it. I thought, I mean, it's odd because it was so action packed. Like it had a lot of action. I
Mhm.
shouldn't have been bored,
Gotcha.
but I was.
Yeah, which is weird because I would think like because there was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on.
So it wasn't like it was just like no dialogue the whole movie and everything was quiet. I mean, there was some of the gunshots really made me jump.
Yeah, no, I
They
was jolted
jolted
a
me
little bit.
awake.
I was
Yeah.
jolted a couple times, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wasn't interested. It didn't grab me. I didn't care about the characters or what was going on or what they were going through.
Right.
Like it didn't grab me
Right.
to make me feel like I was invested at all.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I brought up afterwards, when we were talking about it in the vehicle on the way home, was when I asked you, I was like, "Who's the main character?"
I could say
Now I know a lot of times there's like you could say, well, there's a core of main protagonists, and maybe you can play with that with this movie, but it really felt to me like the person they were trying to make the main character was Lee,
yeah,
played by Kirsten Dunst, which
that's what I would say is the main character.
which first of all I would say that none of them had bad performances.
No, they all did okay.
I feel like they executed the actors.
Yeah, I wasn't taken out
the
of it because
cast-
of the performances.
Right. But I was saying like, usually when you think of the main protagonist, it's the who gets thrust into the story and who you're following. You know, from who they are, and then they get thrust into a new world, new story, hero's journey, because we talk about a lot, and then they go through. They have a goal, and then they have obstacles to that goal, and then they have another goal that changes, and by the end they're changed, and can never return back to where they were in the original, when the story before the story started.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was that younger kid,
Jesse.
I think technically, it was like she was the main protagonist that the story was supposed to revolve around, but we caught her late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because what was the goal? You know, like what was?
Do we need to before we go any further?
Oh.
Spoiler alerts.
Probably. I was gonna make a video on that, guys. Sorry about that. So, just to let you know, we're about to talk about Civil War the movie. Went to the movie theater. It just came out this weekend. So there will be spoilers. We're gonna try not to do too many crazy spoilers because it really don't matter, but just in case. So if I don't know if you guys are watching this live, but if you're watching this later date before I can put up the new one, just remember that there are spoilers ahead. We're going to give away some stuff probably, just so that we can go over what we saw and what we think we need to analyze or whatever you want to say, because I think it was a fun concept that had potential, and I think maybe they missed the mark. What do you think about missing the mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have been cool. Like I said, they had a lot of action stuff, and it was. I mean, it was nice. Like they did good job on the choreography, like everything. Like a lot of it seemed real, like it seemed believable. But like I don't know if it was just the story, or I don't know. Like I said, I just wasn't in it.
Yeah. The dog's just going crazy. Lay down, Jasmine. Lay down. All right, back to it. Yeah, but I think too. That's why I was wondering, because see, I didn't feel bored like you did, and one of the reasons I say that is because I felt pretty immersed. Like I felt in a lot of those scenes, I felt really immersed. Like I felt like I was there with them.
Do you think though that's
And-
because of your military experience?
No,
Because you really like you've been in situations like that?
I haven't necessarily been in situations like that. Like I
Well,
haven't been
not
right. I was in a
specifically.
mechanized unit, and I wasn't necessarily like going from building to building, getting shot at, shooting at people like face to face like that. That was not my experience. And my the firefights I've been involved with were very few
Mm-hmm.
and very I guess as protected as you could be in a firefight. I wasn't walking around, rucksack,
Gotcha.
in the open, or trying to find cover. That wasn't my experience. But so maybe partly, but also I just felt the way that they shot
Mhm.
shot all these scenes really put me in there.
Gotcha.
And that's the only reason why I wasn't completely bored. Also, I have the luxury of liking some of enjoying seeing what they're doing with the camera when Lee was laying down in the grass and you see the whatever those little flower things are called, and you got it coming out of focus and in focus as she's literally, because they were basically trying to showcase the human eye and her being a photographer, how she sees the world, and she was going in focus, out of focus, in focus, out of focus, as if she would have
Using a lens.
got her shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found some of that stuff to be very intriguing to me and very interesting. And that's the kind of stuff that kind of kept me in it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that you have that luxury. Even if the story completely sucked and was completely boring, your mind would still be looking at that stuff regardless. So
Mhm.
it'd still give your brain something to do.
Yeah, I guess as a wannabe filmmaker,
It would get.
I do look at that stuff. I do find that stuff interesting, and that stuff about films intrigue me. And being able to tell a story with a camera outside, I'll tell you right now, I felt the story that the camera told was way better than the story that the movie told.
Yeah.
The camera was telling stories, and if there's things, sometimes people miss them, I guess. I don't want to sound like, oh, I'm smarter or whatever, but sometimes people miss the story that the camera is telling. And there was a ton of metaphors and things that push the scenes along, where what the camera was doing was kind of telling you some more information. It was giving you this subsect, the way the camera was moving, the way the camera was focusing, what it was doing, what they were doing with that cinematography. In my opinion, if you take the plot line and the storyline out of this movie, it's definitely one of the best shot movies I've seen in modern times. As far as letting the cameraman be an artist, letting him do his thing, letting him tell a story. I don't know if they let him, but overall, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The way they directed your eye, I thought was incredible. They were definitely painting the frames they want. There was no waste in we're just gonna kind of let the camera sit over here and get our shot and whatever. The whole frame was filled with what they wanted to portray, and I felt really good about that. And the composition was just great, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The way they used a little bit of color, I thought the way they used sound told a story. So everything around it told its own story. So I kind of feel like that was what pushed mine over to a 7.
Mm-hmm.
Had a lot to do with the surrounding stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't think you're a quote unquote normie when it comes to that. I feel like
Maybe not.
most normal people, yeah, those things can make or, but you were saying they can make or break a movie for them,
Mhm.
but it's a whole package. It's one thing. It's all the movie.
Mhm.
Like I don't dissect those into different categories. If that makes sense.
No, I mean it does make a lot of sense to me. Because at the end of the day, I've always said this too before. Whenever we've talked about critics and people talking about movies, and it does overall, at the end of the day, comes down to did you enjoy it or did you not? Were you entertained by it, or did you not? Because I like a lot of stupid movies. I like a lot of movies that if I were to try to take a real critical scalpel to, where I would pick it apart, saying like this is really done bad. But
Yeah.
for some reason, I enjoy it. For some reason, it entertains me. It's not the best dialogue, or it's not the most well shot, but I enjoy them. So at the end of the day, it's about what you enjoy and what you don't. So it doesn't really matter. This is where we've talked about, my criticisms of different movies really have to do with more than just was it enjoyable or was it not sometimes. And that's kind of where I was with it. As far as I'm going to ask you first, and then I'm going to give my take on this. But as far as depicting, like when you were watching it and you're thinking, oh, if we have a new American Civil War, how much of that were you like, bullshit? And how much of that were you like, yeah, I could see it, kind of playing out that way?
I mean, it was believable. I don't know if I necessarily
Believable in what way?
just that's how it, like the gravity of it, and it would literally be people in regular clothes
Mm-hmm.
going out fighting against their neighbors, basically.
Okay.
I mean, that I could believe that if it came to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not California and Texas would ever be on the same side, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're the ones that started the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But so that part, I'm not sure if I believe
Did they start the whole thing?
they're the ones that seceded and they
I
started
know they
it.
seceded, but
And they're the ones they were the Western forces.
yes, I know. But did they start the Civil War? Because wasn't it? I mean, wouldn't you say too? Like it was the Civil War started because everybody was kind of falling apart and they broke away on their own, and then they decided to come together to fight what the president was doing.
I don't know. They seceded and they started fighting.
Okay.
So they the way that they made it seem to me.
Mhm.
They didn't like what the president was doing. So they seceded and started fighting.
Okay, so it was all kind of in tandem. Is kind of what you
That's how I took it.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't really do anything to the lead up to make
Not really.
the years of what may have caused those things.
Right.
But that's how I took it was
Right.
they didn't like what the president was doing, so they seceded and then started attacking.
Anyway, yeah. So Western forces, and then they started attacking. I do find it believable. A lot of people are like, no way California and Texas are gonna get together.
That's the part that I had the hardest time with.
I didn't, because without trying to get too political, I'm trying to hold back on that because the goal of this show was to kind of stay away from politics as much as possible. I think, which is kind of hard to do in this kind of movie, but I believe that it makes sense. These are two countries, or these are two states that have the most, as far as them seceding, like they have the most capability of seceding. They were both California Republic and the Republic of Texas. Like these were nations in the Union that could secede. And they have the GDP to do it, all the military stuff. Like I think they're big enough. And as much as they seem different politically now, when you get a president who becomes a dictator, or if the country has become a dictatorship, if they both wanted to secede, the problem is they know that one of them couldn't do it but both of them pretty much wins a war that they could divvy up the country with, and they would both have power in some way. So I think when it comes to the governments, when we think of politics, like, yeah, they're different as far as voters want, what voters want. But we all know that everybody comes together in the halls of Congress and do the same things, like, no
Yeah.
matter what. So when it becomes a situation like that, I think they would easily come together and say, look, we could do this together, and it wouldn't be that hard if we got together, we can get this guy out, and then we can let it all all the chips fall where they may and bring it back. I can see them leading the charge. Especially just because both of their economies are almost self-sufficient. Maybe not as much California's, but definitely Texas has its own power grid. Like, Texas is set up, so I could see them joining forces. I do find that believable in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, I do find that believable. The only things that I really was kind of wondering about, I don't know, like, I don't know if it would have fractured the way that they kind of made it out to be fractured. And I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say there, but I do think it wouldn't be as sporadic. It definitely wouldn't be like a lot of people think a new Civil War. They think of the old American Civil War and think, oh, well, it would be, East versus West or North versus South, and it'd be a bunch of states that seceded. And the thing is, you could have a civil war without any states seceding, and some would say we're kind of in a civil war right now. If you look at civil wars around the world, it's just disparate groups.
Yeah, it's
a bunch of different groups,
different cultures,
fighting each other and vying for power. And
Yep.
we think of civil wars that they have a defined enemy and they turn to a revolution. Doesn't always turn into a revolution.
No, doesn't always get to that point.
I think it's roughly. I still think the concept of the movie, like, they depicted what they were wanting.
Yeah.
It's just a movie about journalists, really.
I think that's another thing that I just made me not care about it.
Okay.
If they were to have done the same type of a movie, even the same scenes for some of them, but following it from a soldier's perspective, or a civilian that became soldiers' perspective, and like what they were going through, I think I may have been more interested.
Gotcha.
Rather than just the journalists who were the journalists who were embedded with the military that
we didn't really follow them
to watch from the outside in of what was going on.
We didn't follow the embedded journalists.
They were embedded journalists. Okay, well, that's what a lot of the descriptions call them.
Well, they're not really embedded. They go into these different places, but they're kind of on their own. The embedded journalists, they even made fun of them.
Oh, okay.
Remember the ones when they finally got to the Western Forces base?
Oh, the
just
British chick?
before they went to take, they were the ones in uniform with the vests on, and they even talked about them. Oh, look who's embedded with the blah blah blah.
Gotcha.
Embedding is you're attached to a unit.
Gotcha. Well, I'm just saying that other descriptions talking about this movie called them that.
Right, and I mean, you could say they're embedded in the war, but most embedded journalists, and I guess at the end you could say they became embedded because they ended up going along for the ride to go, that final scene. Which kind of was a cool scene visually, but I was just like...
But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like it was more like another step removed from what was going on. Because them watching them do the things.
Correct. And that's kind of what I think this movie was going for.
I get it. But I think that was another part of the reason why I didn't care.
Correct.
As
I
much.
could see that for sure.
It disassociated me from what was going on.
Yeah. And the other point to bring up there was when you say, okay, if we followed some soldiers or a group of soldiers or that whole thing that's going on. Also because that's where the plot actually is. They never really gave a plot line, really, in any solidified way with the journalists.
There was no actual point in what they were doing. Because we have to get from point A to point B. Okay.
Right, and
like
when you
that was the plot.
Right.
We have to get from point A to point B.
Which that's what leads me to the Jess character should have been, if we were going to follow the journalist.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, you take the Jess character, Jessie, whatever. You take her, the young girl, which I thought did a good job in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the actress's name, but you take her, and she wants to, be, part of journalism or whatever. So she wants to be with these people. But the thing is like their whole goal was to get to DC, and there was no what we call like the, to get to the lock-in. Usually there's some form of like pushback or hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a character from like their comfortable surroundings and you thrust them into something that they weren't really wanting to do, but then now but something overcomes their objections.
Yep.
And so it almost would have been better if Jessie was trying to be a journalist and then but realized that they were going to DC, and then the guy, which I forgot his name already, Joel is trying to get, it's like, if you really want to be a journalist, which I loved him, by the way.
Yeah, he was good.
Probably my favorite character in the whole movie.
He was good.
If you want to do this, you're gonna, this is where we're going. She's like, but DC's too hot. Like, there should have been some kind of hesitation there. And then she's like, well, yes, but in order to do this, I need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there will be all those like pitfalls and stuff stopping. Nothing stopped them from getting to DC except for maybe one scene where they almost all died.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there wasn't all these like obstacles in their way and new goals and, B plot, C plot. So they created this, they basically took the actual story that had like a lock-in, which is the Civil War happening and the Western forces getting together, and now they have to fight for something.
Yep.
But that was all on the periphery.
Yeah.
And we're following almost side characters.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't do a good job of making these characters, giving them their plot line.
Mm-mm.
In my opinion, I don't feel like they did that.
I agree.
I think that's where the boredom comes from.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't care about them.
Right.
Like, I'm just like, whatever. Okay, we're watching them. Watch what's going on. Let me see what's going on.
Sure.
Like, I didn't care about them.
But I think
they didn't have a story.
But I think if they had a better storyline, you would care about it. They didn't do what they needed to do. If we're making a movie, because everything, the war is supposed to be the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So like anytime you have a story or a plot idea, like if you have an idea, let's say you wanted to explore a certain theme in a movie or certain type of story that plays out, and you're like, well, I'd love to, make a movie about friends, like a couple of friends who have to find each other, and like by finding each other, I mean like finding out who they are and blah blah blah, coming of age story, whatever it is. You can make that a sports movie. You could make it. You just need a vehicle for it. So it could be a mob movie. It could be a love story. It could be, a Civil War. And that's what they were doing. It's like they used the Civil War as the vehicle, but you're following these journalists and there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have, what is the story? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. For how...
What was that movie about other than Civil War? Because it wasn't about Civil War because we didn't really follow that. We're following the journalists, so they're supposed to be in the story. So what was the story about? And what was the underlining, like, where's the push-pull?
There wasn't any. And if for something as action-packed as it was, it felt very empty.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
There was a lot going on. There was a lot of visuals. Like I was saying, a lot of the gunshots even got me. I'm like, whoa. Like, they did really well with that. There was a lot of going on. Visually, it was okay to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But it was empty.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, and I think, too, the emptiness thing, that was a good way to put it, is just an empty thing. And like I was saying also, I think when we were driving back, I felt like it was a glorified like what if YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of scenes, bunch of cool stuff going on, bunch of like, oh, they're fighting, and we got to the president, which was the goal of the military. Now you could say, oh, the goal of the the main goal, which if you want to talk about, well, there was a resolution, and when we're talking about 3-act structures, was when they said, we want to get a quote from the president.
We want to get to him before they do.
Right. They want that to happen, and they want it on record, whatever. And it was kind of a cool end scene, like, when he's like, and this is another spoiler, but he's like, we need a quote, and he's like, don't let them kill me, and he's like,
That'll
do. But yeah. So overall, I think I gave it a 7 out of 10 just because I thought it was a well done movie, like well executed, just not on story.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if they didn't do such a good job telling a story with the camera and telling a story with the performances and all that and the settings, it would have easily been like a 4 or a 3. Which I've heard people give it a 4. I think right now
I'm at a 4.
I think right now it has 83% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't even know what that actually means, because usually if it's good on Rotten Tomatoes, I don't like it.
Well, it's the tomato score. So it's usually flip-flop. It's usually reverse. So you'll have, if the people at Rotten Tomatoes don't like it, usually the fans like it.
Gotcha.
And vice versa. That's
Okay.
usually, but we'll see how it all pans out with the critics, and everyone's gonna have their own opinions, and everyone's gonna talk and say what it was bad, good. Some people are gonna say, "Oh, you're stupid. It's a really good movie, and you're just missing it." But I don't think I am missing it because I feel like the same people who would say that are gonna be missing the things I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I
sure.
mean?
Yep.
So, and I heard it went through a lot of. I heard a rumor that it went through some reshoots, so I'm wondering if that affected it, because they felt like the plot lines that they were playing with, maybe it felt too biasly political, and maybe
Which
it
could
screwed
be.
it up, and they didn't have time to really implement another. They played scared, like we've talked about before with films. You just kind of got to go for it. If certain people like it, they like it, and if they don't, they don't. Like you gotta stop playing around with things.
Yeah, because
I can't hear you very well
it
because
just,
you're like doing something. I don't know.
I was trying to look up the actress's name,
Oh.
but I gave up.
Kirsten Dunst.
No, Jesse. I know Kirsten Dunst.
Right.
Anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that now. Shoot, my brain is just gone.
We were just saying like how we used to talk about what we've talked about with other movies. You just got to go for it, and if people like it, they don't.
Yeah, no, you can't cater. You got to find your audience and just go for it.
Right.
You can't cater to everybody, because if you try to, nobody's gonna really like
and I
it.
think that might have been happening. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how the true rumors are, but like it's like, yeah, maybe certain people would have been offended. Like maybe you could have offended my political sensibilities, and maybe they were worried about stuff like that and not getting a mass audience because they're worried about picking sides, which is hard. It's easy to do in something like this. But playing scared at the end, that's something you should have thought about in the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know if the rumors of that are true. If they reshot
No,
it or
we
not,
don't know. But I mean, it could make sense.
It would make sense to me because the things that seemed like they were
The
missing.
missing links, yeah, could have been cut out.
Right. Yeah. Did you have any favorite parts? Like, was there any scene that you kind of enjoyed, even though you were bored out of your mind?
I did like, and I know it's going to be similar for what you were going to say, but when they were in the Winter Wonderland or the Christmas Wonderland, whatever that was,
Right.
golf course or whatever it was, I don't know.
Mhm.
But it was just that I think that was the only humorous, really scene.
Guess it was kind of humorous, and I was hoping that
That was the only time I chuckled.
I was hoping that there would be something because that whole movie it just seemed like everyone was just cool with these journalists just hanging around, and
Mhm.
I loved that they finally put a scene where they were just kind of like, you were dumb.
Mhm.
Because that's kind of the feeling when you're like, oh, we have to protect these journalists that are in this combat zone with us, and like we can barely protect ourselves.
Yeah. thanks for the extra responsibility that I didn't
Right.
ask for.
Sure, and the military will take care of them. Like, it's just how it goes. Like,
Yeah, they're obligated to.
and they will try to see it that every man and woman walks away from that situation.
Yeah.
I do think they did a good job at not like disparaging military forces. In fact, I feel like in a way, like if we were following the military, I feel like you would have been rooting for the Western forces the whole time, because the way they're talking about, which they didn't touch on it enough,
No.
they're saying, okay, look, it's a president. They made a nod to the fact that it was his third term, which we know is a no-no.
Yeah.
And so it's just someone took over power in the United States and is corrupt. And some people are putting aside their differences to go out and do that. And I think, why didn't we follow that?
Which, just a little bit of irony, the fact that it was his third term and it was Ron Swanson was great.
Sure. And I was just about to say his actual actor name, and then you said Ron Swanson.
I don't know his real name. It's Ron Swanson, and it will forever be Ron Swanson.
No, it's golly.
Nick something.
Yes. Nick Offerman.
Okay.
Nick Offerman.
But yeah, it's just, I thought I chuckled.
But he hates government, so he wouldn't have.
I know, but
Ron
I
Swanson would have never become.
I know, I
president
just
for
chuckled
one.
a little bit internally, like, it's
Yeah.
Ron Swanson,
Yeah.
third term president. That's kind of funny. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Overall, not the best thing I've seen.
no.
And a matter of fact, one of the first things that went in my head after we watched that movie was I was like, man, I would love to just watch Battle Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
What's cool about that is it's outside forces, it's aliens, and you don't got to worry about that. Movie was well done, though.
It was very well done.
And this director, and I can't remember his name right now off the top, but he's, good writer, good director.
He wrote and directed it.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I don't remember his name, though.
It's not the way I critique the movie and the stuff I've talked about. It just doesn't seem right. Like, that's why I tend to believe there was some kind of pressure to do some reshoots.
Alex Garland.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking Ex Machina, 28 Days Later, all these other movies. Like,
But you were saying it kind of gave you those vibes.
I would say it gave me 28 Days Later vibes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some Ex Machina, but not really. But it just felt a little bit, and maybe that's because 28 Days Later is post-apocalyptic. It's zombies.
Yeah.
So, but the way he shot it, so it's like familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why some of the tone of it was kind of 28 Days Later-ish
Gotcha.
in some spots, not like the whole
Yeah, not
movie.
everything.
But,
that makes sense. There's a lot of directors that do that.
correct. For sure, you see their signature.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know. It makes me wonder because I just don't see. It's not my expectation from his movies. Like, pretty good with plot, story,
Mm-hmm.
intrigue. Which I think he got the intrigue, obviously, because I think some of that stuff was kind of like, oh my god, what the fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was
even
a lot of oh my fucking god in that
Yeah.
movie.
There was one moment, the only moment that I cared even a tiny bit, wasn't about the story. It was just
Mhm.
about the visual that was going on, seeing the
Right.
Lincoln Memorial
Yeah,
getting attacked.
yeah, not the Capitol building.
Anyway,
I would love to check that out, and maybe I saw it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was the Lincoln Memorial because it was right past the mirror pond,
no, it was on the
the
other.
reflection pool, whatever you call it.
It was on the other side. It was that, then the Mirror Pond, then the Washington Monument.
Exactly, and then
So not on the other side of it.
so I mean, like they went across it, they went along the reflection pool,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's where the fucking Lincoln Memorial
I'm
is.
saying it was first, then it was the reflection pool, then it was the Washington Monument. Just in that order.
So you're saying the Lincoln Memorial, we saw the shot of Lincoln Memorial, they went across the reflection pool to the Washington Monument, and then when did they shoot the Lincoln Memorial then?
At the beginning, I'm saying the Washington Monument was in the distance. It was behind it.
Right, but the reflection pool, they
Is
went
in
along
between.
it first, and then that's how they showed
Okay,
that shot of
well-
the helicopter going over it.
I'm just saying when they were showing it shooting, the Lincoln Memorial was behind. So that means the reflection pool was
The Lincoln Memorial was
sorry,
behind?
the Washington Monument was behind.
Right.
So that means the reflection pool is in between. They're not on the same side.
I think it's behind the Lincoln Memorial.
It is? I thought it was in between.
Oh, no, I'm going to look this up. Maybe talk about something.
I don't know. But anyway, doesn't
I'm gonna
matter.
look this up.
This actually doesn't matter to
It
what I was
doesn't,
saying.
But I'm really curious.
Yeah, now we need to know. This is very common how we get on rabbit trails. That's not how that happened. Yes, it is. Well, let's look.
Well, it wasn't the Capitol building. I know that
No,
much.
but anyway, when it was getting shot up, I did have a little catch in my throat.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
It was like, oh, no,
Right.
don't do it.
Yeah.
But once again, that had nothing to do with the story. It was just the visual seeing that happen
Right.
to
You're right.
something
You're
that
right.
is so
You're right about the composition.
ingrained.
So, the Washington Memorial, then the reflecting pond, and then the Lincoln Memorial. So it looks. So you have the Lincoln Memorial. In front of it is the reflecting pool. Which, by
And
the
then
way,
the Washington Monument.
when
okay.
I was in DC, it was drained, which pissed me off. And then the Washington Memorial. But I think the way they
Washington
shot
Monument.
Washington Monument, yeah. The way they shot it kind of made it seem, but yeah.
Okay, that makes me
So
feel so much
they
better. I'm like, I
definitely didn't shoot
swear.
up the Capitol building.
Okay, whatever.
Right.
I conceded to that a long time ago.
But they didn't, so.
Anyway, moving on. That wasn't the point. That was the only thing that I kind of actually like, oh, in the whole
Like you were,
movie.
It was just sad.
It was sad.
Have you
like,
ever even been there and seen it?
no, I've
No?
never been there. But it's
Interesting.
still such an iconic thing
Right.
as an American
Sure.
to see that get shot up and like just destroyed.
Yeah, blown up.
And it felt like it was very symbolic of the state of where we're at now,
Gotcha.
of things just starting to fall apart and crumble.
Right. I think too, because like, well, you didn't have a catch in your throat when the Capitol building and the White House got destroyed in Independence Day.
Very different.
Very different.
Yes. That was stupid aliens and crap doing it.
So as long as aliens do it, it's
It
fine.
wasn't American citizens doing it against other American citizens.
Okay, I'm just kind of joking a little bit.
Has a
with that.
different.
Yeah,
It hurts more when it's family doing it.
sure. Gotcha. That makes sense.
If it's an enemy,
Yeah.
then you expect an enemy to be an enemy.
Right. I wish the dog would just stay in one spot.
Yep. Need to give her some doggy wanna.
Something. Come here. Lay down. Don't go up on the couch. There you go. Stay. Yeah, so speaking of Abraham Lincoln too, because I wanted to kind of touch on the old, we had, a Civil War, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
in America, which I think is different than almost all civil wars that have ever happened.
Yep, and people don't realize that.
Right. But the clickbait title I have is Abraham Lincoln was a tyrant or authoritarian, whatever you want to say. But because I think they were putting journalists in jail. They were banning free speech in some areas. He banned habeas corpus and rights to speedy trials, all that stuff, to try to win a war. And that's another thing I don't think they touched on enough in that movie is how martial law-y it would be. Of course, it would be kind of like disparate
Mm-hmm.
and crazy anyway, a lot of chaos, so not a lot of people following the rules.
Yeah.
But where were the martial law areas? Like,
I think it was implied with his
probably, I guess.
third term and
Right. Yeah.
and there was in the whole movie there was one quote unquote normal town
right.
that wasn't a war zone,
Yeah.
but even that wasn't what it appeared on the surface.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it was more of an implied
If we would have been able to get our guest in here, we could talk more about the first
actual
Civil War.
Civil War.
I my mind's drawing in a lot of blanks right now for some reason from stuff like that, and I don't know really how to tie it in too much to what we watched, but you see the elements of where they're like trying to take it, and project it from our first Civil War that we had
Mm-hmm.
in a way. And I think a lot of people feel like, because when we get taught history, it's all really condensed.
Yes.
So you're not seeing how long these things were gapped.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say, like, we could be in a civil war right now. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Because one day, if it does come to a head, history books could write about certain things that happened where you're like, oh, that was the beginning of the Civil War, and then this happened, then this happened, this happened. If you really pay attention to all the events of I keep trying to say the first Civil War, and I'm trying not to say that because I don't want to manifest a second Civil War. Because I definitely don't want it to happen. I don't think anybody really wants it to happen. If you do, I don't think you really do. But the American Civil War, like, if you really look at all the events that happened, you try to look at the dates and like how they played out, they were pretty separate. Pretty far and few between, and there were still people, people still lived their lives. People still tried to survive. People were still going to stores. People were still going to bars. And when you think about some of the civil wars that happen around the world, people are still eating at restaurants like while there's fucking bombs going off in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that was another scene they had in there that was kind of interesting with all the gunfire while they were just laying there in that parking lot.
Yeah.
With a bunch of stuff going on. But yeah, there would be definitely strong martial law presence for sure.
Yeah, there would have to
In many
be.
areas, even in the quote unquote whatever you saw as the quote good side.
Yeah.
I don't think it
I
would
think
be very
in wartime,
free.
you almost kind of have to have it.
I don't know if you have to have it. I think that's kind of a myth in my opinion. If it's a just war and you have good leaders, you don't need a martial law. But that's just my take on that part. But I think people fight for what they know they have to fight for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know.
But like when you say martial law, I'm also like thinking like curfews and stuff for all the normal people that aren't fighting, that like they need to not be in the streets at certain times because there is warfare going on. Like
Sure.
stuff
And
like that
I
I
would
think of
just-
as part of martial law, and I think is important.
Maybe,
Stuff like that.
but if you're stupid enough to be out there, but like if it does come that close to you, you're gonna die in your home anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly like a hard science with stuff like that.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying that's what I'm seeing is like martial law
Right.
is like rules and things that
Yeah,
you have
but
to abide by
right, but
during these.
mostly martial law
times.
is really speaking to where you're not gonna have. You can get your house searched without notice. You can,
Yeah.
your Bill of Rights are gone.
Yeah, I get that.
No free speech. No
Total authoritarian.
reporting on
You
what's
don't-
going
yeah, I
on.
get that.
I don't think that's exactly necessary in that, but I mean, I could see how some people think it would be. But yeah, I don't know. The movie itself, I guess, like, go watch it if you want to watch it. I don't know if I necessarily will ever watch it again.
No, I mean, I'm not mad that I watched it.
Yeah.
I am okay that I watched it, so I know for myself. Because I also feel like this is one of those types of movies, depending on biases or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
could be misconstrued
Sure.
just listening to it from somebody else's take.
Oh, yeah, that's a point to be made. Like, I think if you're just listening to other people talk about it and talking about the allusions to anything, any bias or whatever, which
Mhm.
I feel like there were some in there that are very subtle, but to me, I saw some things that could be construed as definitely one way or the other.
Mhm.
But it is a movie that I think you have to see for yourself before you can make a judgment on.
Yeah, 100%.
On that part, the
Mhm.
political part.
Political, lack of political, however you want to take it.
Mhm.
Because I do think that everybody has such varied views these days. It's going to be hard to just listen to somebody's take
Correct.
on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 'tis what it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Crazy stuff. Episode 3. We don't know what we're going to talk about episode 4. I know we need to get do you think we could do you think it'd be even interesting to people if we did a whole mortgage episode? I don't know how to hold a mortgage episode.
I don't know. I don't know if normal. See, this is where you have interests that quote unquote normal people don't pay attention to.
Gotcha.
That's my realm.
Yeah.
So I find it very interesting, and I could talk about it
Mm-hmm.
for a while. However, I'm not sure if it's of interest to
I would
others.
like to do it. I mean, I think it would be fun. Just to kind of get into some of the nitty-gritties of that stuff, but I don't know. Is what it is. And if you guys are seeing my new tattoo, it's fake.
Shouldn't
It's
have
wearing
said
off
anything.
pretty good.
Just let it go.
Just let
And
it
then
go
next
wait for
episode,
the
just not have it.
comments.
And see if anybody notices.
Just start doing that all the time. Just put a tattoo on. Next episode, no tattoo.
Yeah, just see if anybody notices.
I think that'd be fucking silly. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what we're gonna talk about next episode. Who knows?
Surprise.
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise to even us.
motherfucker. Yeah. It's funny how you talk to the computer all the time.
I'm looking at the camera.
No, you were looking at the computer. Your eyes weren't there. I got it on tape.
Okay.
Anyway. Fucking freezing earlier.
Yeah, it was miserable.
Miserable. I feel like I have a cough from it. I know.
My
I'm,
neck
like,
and shoulders hurt because I was hunched over and like
just
shivering.
shivering. Mm-hmm.
And my watch recorded 3 minutes of exercise from it too because I was shivering so much.
Wow. Fucking incredible. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really have any other things to talk about for this podcast, but thanks for watching if you're watching. If you're not, I thank you too, but I don't know if you know that I just said thank you.
They'll
Sure.
know eventually.
Eventually. Yeah, but check out our other episode 2, when this actually gets re-put up. When I go in and edit it and re-put it up, you'll be able to see it on the cards. I think it's this way. Nope. This way will be a new playlist, or take you back to the playlist of Frenzie Fam podcast, and this one's to subscribe. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends, give us a little comment, let us know what you thought, and maybe just in the comments say some things that you might want to hear about. We're keeping it pretty eclectic. They say you need to focus in on one issue and do niche stuff, but we also just want to talk about what's fun, because that's the only way to really stay really intrigued and actually do the podcast, in my opinion. So we'll figure out what we're doing next week. Hopefully we can get a guest on soon. We were trying tonight. It didn't end up working out, which was kind of a good thing, because now I got to figure out how to get the Zoom audio working properly in a way that doesn't mess with us where we're hearing our own voice back into our monitor twice. So
Yeah, that was not okay.
we got to figure that out. But yeah, share the show. Click the notification bell. Also, you can find us on Rumble Frenzie Films, TikTok Frenzie Films, Facebook Frenzie Films, also Frenzie Films Stream Team. Try to do updates on there. Frenzie Films Official on Instagram, and on Frenzie Films on X. You can find us. Let us know what you thought, and yeah, share the show with your friends. That's all I can say. You got anything else?
I don't think so. I think
No?
that about covers it.
About covers it.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, so guys, thanks for joining us for episode 3. We'll see you for episode 4. We go live Mondays, 7 p.m. Pacific time. We might next week we're gonna try to go live on Rumble. So we won't be live on YouTube. We'll be live on Rumble. Hopefully soon we can get some software so where we can multi-stream. But we're gonna go live on Rumble next week just to see how it works out, see what we get. Then we'll be back on YouTube live, but you'll still see the video for episode 4 on YouTube. So go to the Frenzie Films YouTube page, click the notification bell to be notified of our future videos. So, yeah. Hope you guys had a good one. Lindy, or Lady Frenzie. We're going to get out of here. I can never say Lady Frenzie on these streams, but I'll get it one day. But But yeah, bye bye everybody. Love you. Have a great day. Have a great